2021 was a record-breaking year in terms of the migrants arriving on England's southern shores, 3 times as any previous year, and likely to be a new record before we get to the end of 2022. You don't see this story many other places apart from GBNews, as Nigel is always saying. That's very simply because one party is open borders. That's the Labour Party. You saw Keir Starmer earlier today doing that American thing where he's got 15 flags behind him to show how patriotic he is. He's now referring to himself as leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, which Jeremy Corbyn never did. He loves the flag, he loves the Queen, but he's in favour of open borders. And he's calculated that that's politically viable because the other party, the government party, Boris Johnson's Tories, simply don't want to talk about this at all. And so on it goes. Every day, ships, not ships, but actually very flimsy vessels of migrants arriving on England's southern coast. Mark White has covered this in more detail than anybody, and he joins us now. What do you basically should be, I think, as you said earlier today, should be given the freedom of the city of Dover. You should be made Duke of Dover. You spend so much time there. What are you seeing down there, Mark?
Certainly need to buy a flat here. I think it would save me in the hotel expenses. But yeah, today I think a significant day, Mark, because we had the first crossings of 2022, and I think this is an indication of where we're headed in the year ahead. It's going to be another year of very significant small boat activity in the Channel, because today there was really only a window of a few hours where the weather was just about calm enough for these boats to be pushed off from the beaches around Dunkirk, and the people smugglers took advantage of that and did exactly that and managed to get a few boats into the Channel to be inevitably picked up by UK authorities. I was at Dover Harbour a little earlier. I saw the Dover lifeboat arriving with some 35 migrants on board that particular lifeboat, and then a few hours later the Border Force vessel Hurricane arrived with 36 migrants on board, so 71 that I saw. We don't know if there were any others that we might have missed, but the weather window that was only a few hours quickly closed in. It's absolutely freezing now. I have to say there's a northerly wind blowing down here in Dover. Out in the Channel it's pretty horrific, and there are squally showers in there, so anybody out there would be struggling big time. We don't think there are any other small boats out there this evening, Mark, but you just never know with the people smugglers.
Now you rightly refer to the people smugglers. Are the, when you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, you brought us a big story about some ne'er-do-wells from the Baltic states who'd been picked up in the North Sea, and it was a very interesting story because people smuggling is a huge business. I believe it's worth 4 billion euros in European Union countries, and yet we never seem to hear anything about the people smugglers on the southern coast. Are they taken into any kind of custody, or are they not on these vessels?
Well, I mean, the people smugglers, many of them are, of course, on the other side of the Channel. There are organised gangs on this side of the Channel that are helping facilitate that trade as well. But it is, as you say, it's very lucrative. And whatever the government says about the Borders and Immigration Bill handing down a potential maximum of life in prison for people smugglers, it's not going to be much of a disincentive for those people smugglers when they are making, on good weeks, many millions of euros, because they're charging at least 5,000 euros a head for those that are getting onto the boats, and they're packing even more, Mark, on the boats now. It's up to 60 on some of these vessels now, the slightly bigger ones, but they're just as flimsy, and in fact it was one of those bigger but more flimsy vessel that sank in November of last year with the loss of 27 lives. But the people smugglers, you were asking about the efforts to try and tackle them. Well, the government have made arrests. They certainly have done that, but not a significant number. the National Crime Agency, in conjunction with colleagues in France, have made in recent years a few hundred arrests. But many of these people are not actually the kingpins, the organisers. No. They are usually migrants, those that want to come across here that don't have the money for the boat trip, that are effectively put in charge of steering that vessel. They're put behind at the rear of the stern of the small boat, put in charge of the engine and told, go in that direction and keep going. And that's what they do. And then, of course, they're picked up. And then they're prosecuted as a people smuggler. Really, they're one of the migrants who've just been put in charge of the steering because they couldn't afford the bill.
So every so often, the British authorities will catch a minnow, I guess. I should have emphasised, by the way, when I said 4 billion, that was calculated a couple of years ago to be the annual profit from people smuggling into the EU. If you look demographically at the population explosion that's gone on in Africa in the last 30 years or so, and is calculated by the UN to go on into the middle of this century, it's going to be a very lucrative business. Is the government not worried, are governments in general not worried that these human smuggling cartels are going to be as powerful as the Latin American drug cartels became in the 1980s?
I think in truth, Mark, they are absolutely very worried about this. It is a growing phenomenon, and it is a fast growing phenomenon in terms of the way that it's operating now in and around Europe. The people smugglers are highly organised now. We've seen the way in which the model has adapted in the small boat crossings, which, initially, to begin with, a couple of years ago, it was a few hundred. Then in 2019, it was a few thousand. Last year, it was 8,400. The year before, 2020, it was 8,400. And then last year, of course, 28,395. It's growing all the time. The boats are growing. Right. They're getting them custom built. They're getting materials from China, and they're getting them assembled in Turkey, and then transported to right up through to France, to northwestern France, where they're then blown up with air, and then, of course, the taken to the beaches. The people are put on them. They're sent across the channel. But it's not just the small boats, Mark. Our focus has been on the small boats, but I can tell you it's still going on with the lorries, the clandestines, as the Home Office refers to them, those that smuggle themselves in the back of the lorries. Just last night, the French police had to remove tree branches and things like that were put around the roads in Calais because, while migrants aren't getting across on the boats, what they're doing is re-engaging with this effort to get on the backs of lorries. So they stop it with the likes of tree branches, a lorry, and then when the lorry stopped, they all scramble in the back of the lorry. So it's still going on in the lorries as well as on the boats.
Well, stay on this story, Mark, because a lot of the other media aren't doing anything about it.